windy afternoon and the silence of helplessness. Heavenbrook Square was always a bustling place. The ancient fountains, rows of lush green trees swaying in the breeze, and pigeons circling the pale gray sky. It was a chilly afternoon, with the sun still hanging high, but the cold air beginning to creep in with every gust of wind. Under the shade of a large maple tree sat Mrs. Eleanor, an elderly woman over 70, in an old creaky wheelchair. Her trembling hands struggled to push herself across the uneven pavement. Her thin, veiny fingers, like withered branches, gripped the armrest tightly. Each push sent the wheelchair's wheels screeching with a heavy sound. Mrs. Eleanor was once a teacher, a strong woman with bright eyes and a voice full of inspiration, but time spares no one. Rheumatism had robbed her of the strength in her hands, and the wrinkles on her kind face bore the marks of long, endless years. In the distance near the fountain, 3 young men were laughing loudly. Kyle, a tall guy with short blonde hair, tossed an empty water bottle toward his buddies. Derek, skinny and always with his hands in his coat pockets, leaned away, making the 3 burst into laughter as if it was the funniest thing in the world. Bryce, with a cold face and a small tattoo on his neck, scanned the surroundings, his sharp eyes gliding over passers-by, seemingly searching for a new target to mock. And then he saw Mrs. Eleanor. Derek nudged Kyle with his elbow, a sly grin on his face. "Hey, that old lady seems to be struggling," Derek whispered. "Well, let's help her out for some fun." Bryce smirked, his eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. The 3 approached. Kyle put on a fake polite smile, stepping in front of Mrs. Eleanor. "Hello, ma'am. Let us help you with your wheelchair," he said, his voice sickly sweet. Mrs. Eleanor looked up, her dim eyes still showing a hint of gratitude. "Oh, thank you, young men. So kind of you," she said, her voice trembling. But just as she thanked them, Bryce pushed the armrest forcefully, making the wheelchair lurch forward. Mrs. Eleanor panicked, struggling to maintain her balance. "Oh, wait!" Derek burst into a wicked laugh. "Careful there, Granny! Don't doze off in the middle of the street." Mrs. Eleanor gripped the armrest tighter, her hands shaking more than ever. She tried to use her frail legs to stop the wheelchair, but it was useless. Bryce pushed again, harder this time, causing the wheelchair to sway. The crowd in the square passed by, some glancing back but quickly walking away, not wanting to get involved. "Come on, let her move on her own," Kyle laughed loudly. Then he, Derek, and Bryce stepped back, forming a circle, watching as if enjoying a performance. Mrs. Eleanor bowed her head, fear and shame flooding her heart. No one helped her. No one at all. The wind blew, making her silver hair fly messily in front of her face. But she no longer had the strength to brush it away. Tears streamed down her wrinkled cheeks, mingling with the pain and helplessness. In the distance, among the bustling crowd, a pair of dark eyes watched intently. Malik, a tall, young black man, had just finished his shift at the nearby cafe. He wore a faded baseball cap and an old frayed jacket. He didn't need to hear clearly to know what was happening. The mocking laughter, the frightened look on Mrs. Eleanor's face, and the 3 young men standing there as if they owned the world. A wave of anger surged within Malik. Old memories flooded back, of being the kid pushed around, mocked just because of his skin color. But this time, he wouldn't walk away. Malik clenched his fists and quickly made his way toward Mrs. Eleanor and the bullies. The wind blew stronger, but this time, it no longer felt cold. In his chest, a smoldering fire began to burn. The steps of courage. Malik walked swiftly through the crowd, his long strides steady. His heart pounded in his chest, but his eyes were unwavering, like 2 dark flames cutting through the chilly wind. He had once stood on the sidelines, witnessing injustice without daring to speak up. But today that would change. Closer now, he could see Mrs. Eleanor's face more clearly. Her tear-filled eyes, her trembling hands clutching the wheelchair's armrests, and the twisted smiles of the 3 young men before her. Bryce, still with a mocking grin, continued pushing the wheelchair back and forth as if playing with a toy. "Anyone want to help this old lady?" Bryce shouted, drawing a few curious glances from the crowd. "Hey lady, where are you going? Back to the nursing home?" Derek and Kyle burst out laughing, slapping each other as if it were the funniest joke they had ever heard. But their laughter abruptly stopped when Malik stepped into the circle. He placed his hand on the wheelchair's armrest, gently but firmly, stopping Bryce from pushing it any further. "You guys think this is fun?" Malik asked, his voice low but clear, ringing out in the open air like a warning bell. Bryce raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Mind your own business, black boy," he sneered. Malik didn't respond, his eyes never leaving Bryce. "I'll ask you again. Do you think this is fun?" Kyle laughed loudly, trying to appear confident. "Come on, hero. We're just playing with the old lady. She likes the attention, right?" Malik leaned down to Mrs. Eleanor, his voice soft. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Mrs. Eleanor couldn't speak, tears streaming down her cheeks, but she managed to nod slightly. "Who are you to butt in?" Bryce stepped forward, fists clenched. "Want to play hero? Fine." He swung his arm trying to shove Malik away, but Malik sidestepped with ease as if dodging a gust of wind. He grabbed Bryce's wrist firmly, his gaze cold as a blade. "Don't test me," Malik said, his voice calm yet laced with a clear warning. The crowd around them stopped, watching in silence. Derek and Kyle exchanged nervous glances, their confidence wavering. Bryce tried to wrench his arm free but couldn't escape Malik's iron grip. "Apologize to her," Malik demanded, his voice steady as steel. Bryce hesitated, his eyes darting between Malik and the growing crowd. A few people had pulled out their phones, recording the scene. I was just joking," Bryce mumbled, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Apologize," Malik repeated, his eyes never leaving Bryce's. "Sorry," Bryce said, louder this time, but the tension was clear in his voice. Malik released his grip but remained between Bryce and Mrs. Eleanor. "Now leave," Malik commanded. Derek tugged on Bryce's sleeve, while Kyle quickly stepped back. "Come on, Bryce, don't waste time on this guy." The three turned and walked away, grumbling under their breath, but the eyes of the crowd stayed on them. When they were gone, Malik leaned down to Mrs. Eleanor's level. "You're safe now, ma'am. Don't worry." Mrs. Eleanor's tear-filled eyes were now filled with gratitude. "Thank you, young man. Thank you so much," she whispered, her voice shaky. Malik gave a gentle smile. "No need to thank me, ma'am. Where are you headed? Let me take you there." Just home," she sighed, her hands still slightly trembling. "Got it. I'll help you." Malik grasped the wheelchair's handles and gently pushed her along the paved path. The crowd gradually dispersed, some whispering to each other, while a few smiled at Malik with admiration. Under the pale gray sky, with the autumn leaves gently falling around them, Malik quietly guided Mrs. Eleanor's wheelchair through the square. It was not just a simple act of kindness, but a declaration that compassion still existed, even among indifference. "What's your name, young man?" Mrs. Eleanor asked, her voice calmer now. "I'm Malik, ma'am. Malik Carter." "And I'm Eleanor. Eleanor Foster," she replied, pausing for a moment, her eyes shining with emotion. I thought this world had no kindness left." Malik's grip on the wheelchair tightened slightly. "It's still here, ma'am. Sometimes kindness just needs to speak up." They continued forward, their shadows stretching long over the cobblestone path. For Mrs. Eleanor, it was the first time in years she didn't feel invisible. And for Malik, it was the moment he realized that courage wasn't about being fearless, but about facing fear to protect what was right. The power of kindness. The autumn breeze still whispered across Havenbrook Square, but its chill seemed to have softened in Mrs. Eleanor's heart. The wheelchair's wheels glided smoothly over the cobbled sidewalk, the screeching sound now replaced by a gentle hum thanks to Malik's steady hands. "Where do you live, ma'am?" Malik asked, his eyes focused ahead, always alert for any uneven patches on the path. "Across Elm Street, number 47, near the corner," Mrs. Eleanor replied, her voice now calmer. Malik nodded, pushing the wheelchair gently, avoiding any bumps. His steps were light, unrushed, as if the whole world could wait. "Do you work nearby, Malik?" Mrs. Eleanor asked, trying to ease the lingering tension in her heart. "Yes, ma'am. I work part-time at the cafe near the square. I had just finished my shift when I saw—" "What happened to you?" Malik answered, not wanting to bring up the ugly scene again and upset her further. Mrs. Eleanor nodded slightly. "You are a good young man, Malik. I am truly fortunate to have met you." Malik simply smiled without saying anything. He had heard words of thanks many times before, but this time they brought a different feeling, a strange warmth spreading within him. As they turned onto Elm Street, a few of Mrs. Eleanor's neighbors walked by. Some glanced at her and Malik with curious eyes, but none stopped to ask. "Everyone here is always busy. Sometimes nobody notices anyone else," Mrs. Eleanor sighed. "I live alone since my husband passed away." Malik could hear the loneliness in her voice. He looked down and saw her hands still gripping the armrests, as if afraid that letting go would make her disappear once again. They arrived at her small house, a red brick home with a white fence and flower pots that had wilted from neglect. Malik guided the wheelchair down the pathway and stopped before the steps. "Let me help you inside," Malik offered, leaning down to open the door. "I can manage from here, thank you. But would you like to come in for a cup of tea? I have chamomile tea, the kind I dry myself." Malik hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Sure, I'd love to." He helped Mrs. Eleanor up the steps and into her home. The inside was cozy but carried a hint of sadness. Old paintings lined the walls, the armchairs were worn, and a dusty bookshelf was filled with ancient books. "Please sit here. I'll make the tea for you," Malik suggested when he saw Mrs. Eleanor's hands still shaking. "Oh no, you don't have to. But if you want to, the kettle is in the kitchen and the jar of chamomile is beside it." Malik smiled and stepped into the kitchen. He filled the kettle, turned on the stove, and quickly found the jar of dried, fragrant chamomile flowers. While waiting for the water to boil, his eyes scanned the small, tidy kitchen, which felt a bit empty. He returned to the living room, where Mrs. Eleanor sat quietly, staring out the window. Her eyes were distant, as if lost in thought. "Mrs. Eleanor, are you all right?" Malik asked gently. She flinched slightly, then looked back at him. "I was just thinking about the old days. When I was young, I was a teacher. The classroom was always filled with laughter, always filled with innocent faces and curious eyes." Malik pulled a chair closer, listening attentively. "I used to tell the children that the world was full of good things. But now I wonder, was I lying? When those kids, today—" "No, you weren't lying," Malik interrupted, his eyes steady. "The world still has good people. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to find them, and sometimes the good people have to stand up." Mrs. Eleanor gazed at Malik for a long moment, as if searching for something in his young face. Then she smiled, a real, heartfelt smile. "You are very wise, Malik." The sound of the boiling water interrupted their conversation. Malik stood up, poured the tea into 2 delicate porcelain cups. The sweet scent of chamomile filled the room, bringing a gentle warmth. They sat together, sipping tea and sharing stories. Mrs. Eleanor talked about her years as a teacher, about her late husband, about the students she once cherished. Malik shared his own life, a boy growing up in a poor neighborhood, his mother working tirelessly to provide for him, the times he was mocked because of his skin color, but also the times when strangers reached out a helping hand, just like he had done for Mrs. Eleanor. 2 people, 2 generations, 2 different lives. Yet they found a strange bond of empathy within each other. When the sky turned to dusk, Malik stood up to leave. "Thank you for the tea and the wonderful stories, ma'am," Malik said with a sincere smile. "I should be the one thanking you, Malik, not just for helping me, but for reminding me that kindness still exists," Mrs. Eleanor replied. Malik bowed slightly and walked out, but he didn't know that his image would linger in Mrs. Eleanor's mind, like a small but bright light in her lonely days. As Malik stepped away from Elm Street, he had no idea that from afar, a young woman had recorded the video of him helping Mrs. Eleanor and shared it on social media. And within just a few hours, the story of the young man who protected an old lady would begin to spread like wildfire. When light spreads, Malik had no idea that his actions that afternoon, protecting Mrs. Eleanor, would ignite a wave of emotions on social media. Just a few hours after he left her house, a short video began spreading on Facebook and Twitter. The video captured the moment Malik stood up to the 3 young men, protecting Mrs. Eleanor. The voice in the video, belonging to the young woman who recorded it, was filled with outrage. "Look at this! These 3 are bullying a helpless old lady. And then, this guy shows up like a real hero." In the video, Malik appeared calm but resolute, his voice clear and strong as he demanded the young men apologize to Mrs. Eleanor. The final scene showed him gently pushing her wheelchair away, leaving the bullies standing there looking ashamed. Within hours, the video reached thousands of shares and comments. "We need more people like him in this society. He is a true silent hero. Shame on those bullies." Proud of this young man, Malik had no idea he was becoming famous on social media until the next morning, when he was getting ready for work and received a call from the cafe. "Malik, have you seen it?" Mia, his manager, sounded excited. "Seen what?" Malik replied, still sleepy as he buttoned his jacket. "Your video's going viral everywhere. You've become a hero online." Malik froze in the hallway. "Video? What video?" "Someone recorded you helping the old lady yesterday at Havenbrook Square. You should check it out. It has tens of thousands of views already." Malik hung up, opened his phone, and quickly saw the video, tagged by friends. He saw his own face, the determined look in his eyes as he faced the three bullies. His first reaction was shock. He never imagined that his small act would gain this much attention. But just a few minutes later, a flood of messages poured into his phone. "Malik, is that you? I'm so proud of you. Mr. Malik, you're amazing. Thank you for standing up for others." Malik sank down onto his bed, his hand on his forehead. He didn't know what to do or how to feel. "Come down for breakfast, Malik," his mother's voice called from the kitchen. "Coming, Mom." Malik took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Downstairs, Mrs. Loretta, his mother, was setting out a plate of fried eggs and fresh toast. When she saw Malik coming down, she smiled. "My boy's famous today, huh?" she said, her eyes filled with pride. Malik frowned. "You know about it too, Mom." "Of course. The whole neighborhood is talking about how you helped that old lady yesterday. Mrs. Helen next door even sent me a message to compliment you. Mom, I just did the right thing. It's not a big deal." Mrs. Loretta stepped over, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes doing the right thing is the biggest deal, Malik." The whole day at the cafe, Malik became the center of attention. Customers came in, some recognized him, a few asked for pictures, while others simply smiled in appreciation. Mia, his manager, even joked, "Maybe our cafe will be busier now, thanks to Havenbrook's hero." Malik blushed, but a small sense of pride grew within him. But not everyone was happy. At a fast food joint on the other side of town, Kyle, Derek, and Bryce sat huddled in a corner, their faces tense as they rewatched the video. "Damn it, we're being made to look like monsters," Derek muttered, his voice shaky. "Because we were," Kyle snapped. "We have to do something. If this video keeps spreading, we'll get expelled," Bryce said, his eyes darting nervously. "We need to talk to that old lady. Get her to clarify that we were just joking," Kyle suggested. Bryce nodded. "Yeah. If she says we didn't mean any harm, people will believe us." And so, while Malik received respect and admiration from the community, the three bullies began planning a way to escape the consequences of their actions. But they didn't know that Mrs. Eleanor was not someone who could be easily persuaded. Facing the truth, Bryce, Kyle, and Derek couldn't stay calm as the video continued spreading rapidly on social media. To them, what once seemed like harmless fun now painted them as public villains, condemned by the entire community. "We have to talk to that old lady. We have to do something before this gets out of hand," Bryce growled, his fists clenched so tightly they turned white. "But what if she refuses to help us?" Derek worried, his eyes nervously darting around the fast food joint. "Then we make her. Threaten her if we must," Kyle muttered. The next morning, the three appeared at Mrs. Eleanor's house on Elm Street. Bryce took a deep breath, then knocked hard on the door. The door swung open, and Mrs. Eleanor appeared, her silver hair slightly messy after a long night. Her eyes flashed with surprise at the sight of the familiar faces. "Oh, you. What do you need?" she asked, her voice slightly trembling. "Hello, ma'am. We've come to apologize to you for what happened the other day." Bryce forced a smile. "You know, it was all just a joke. We didn't mean to upset you." Mrs. Eleanor stood still, her gaze dropping, becoming stern. "A joke? Yeah, you understand, right? You just need to tell everyone that we didn't mean any harm. That you forgive us? Kyle added, his voice anxious. Forgive you? After you pushed me, mocked me in front of a crowd, and now you want me to help you escape the consequences? For the first time, the three stood there, unable to answer. You know you're a kind person, ma'am, Bryce tried to plead, but his voice lost its confidence. Kind? Mrs. Eleanor let out a bitter laugh. If I were kind, I might stay quiet and forgive. But no, you were wrong, and the world should know that. Kyle clenched his teeth, stepping forward. Listen, old lady, if you don't help us, this video will ruin our lives. Don't you want to live in peace? Then don't make this worse. But as he stepped closer, a voice called out from behind them. Hey, what are you doing here? The three turned to see Malik standing at the end of the street, his sharp eyes fixed on them. He had just finished his shift and decided to visit Mrs. Eleanor as promised. Oh, it's the hero again, Bryce sneered, trying to appear confident. Malik, you came just in time, Mrs. Eleanor sighed, her voice mixed with relief and lingering fear. Were you threatening her? Malik asked, walking closer, his gaze never leaving the three. Threatening? No way. We just want her to tell the truth. That it was all just a misunderstanding, Kyle answered, his voice shaking. A misunderstanding? You pushed her, mocked her in front of everyone, and now you call it a misunderstanding? Malik scoffed. You don't know anything, Derek shouted. That video is ruining us. Our families found out. We're going to get expelled. Then you deserve it, Malik replied, his voice cold. That's the price of hurting others. Bryce stepped forward, trying to use his height to intimidate Malik. Listen here, punk. Don't act like you're a hero. You're just a nosy loser who sticks his nose where it doesn't belong. Malik didn't step back. If protecting others makes me a loser, then I accept it. Bryce, filled with anger, swung his fist, but Malik easily dodged, grabbing Bryce's arm and twisting it, forcing him to his knees. You want to fight? Fine. But if you want to apologize, do it the right way. Kyle and Derek backed away, fear flashing across their faces. Bryce struggled, his face turning red with shame and rage. Fine. We're sorry. Sorry, okay? He yelled, but Mrs. Eleanor simply shook her head. I don't need a fake apology. I need you three to understand that what you did was wrong. Malik looked at Bryce, then at the other two. You can either apologize sincerely, or you can leave and stay cowards. The choice is yours. The three stood there silent for a moment. Finally, Bryce got to his feet, wiping the dirt from his knees. He looked at Mrs. Eleanor, his eyes filled with embarrassment and fear. I'm sorry, he mumbled. Kyle and Derek muttered quietly. We're sorry. Now leave, as Malik ordered, his patience worn thin. The three turned and walked away without another word. As they disappeared down the street, Mrs. Eleanor let out a sigh of relief. Malik turned to her, his gaze softening. Are you all right, Mrs. Eleanor? I'm fine. Thank you, Malik. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened. Don't worry, they won't bother you again, Malik reassured her. But Mrs. Eleanor looked at him, her eyes full of concern. But Malik, those boys won't give up easily. You have to be careful. Malik smiled, but deep down, a faint sense of worry began to grow, and he didn't know that the video was still spreading, drawing attention from even more people. Not just locals in the neighborhood, but also those he never expected. When kindness faces danger. The video of Malik protecting Mrs. Eleanor continued to spread like wildfire across social media. Posts and comments praising his courage and kindness multiplied rapidly. Some local news outlets even reached out for interviews, and Malik's name appeared on news websites. But not everyone was pleased with the story. In a shadowy corner behind Havenbrook High School, Bryce, Kyle, and Derek sat with a group of other young men, their faces filled with anger. That punk thinks he's a hero? Bryce snarled, slamming his fist onto the old wooden table, his knuckles turning red. He made us look like cowards. Because you are, came a rough, raspy voice. It was Travis, an older thug from the area, the one they sought out for advice. What do we do, Travis? Kyle asked, trying to hide the fear in his voice. It's simple. Travis leaned back, his cold eyes fixed on them. If that guy wants to be famous as a hero, then all you have to do is turn him into a joke. What do you mean? Derek hesitated. Travis leaned forward, a sly grin on his face. Show everyone that he's just a weak kid, not a hero, and if necessary, teach him a lesson so he knows not to stick his nose in other people's business. Bryce, Kyle, and Derek exchanged uneasy glances. Inside them, fear gave way to burning resentment. Meanwhile, at the cafe where Malik worked, he was busy making a cappuccino for a customer when Mia, his manager, walked up to him. Malik, another reporter wants to interview you, Mia said, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and concern. Are you sure? This is getting bigger than you think. Malik paused, letting out a sigh. I don't know, Mia. I just wanted to help Mrs. Eleanor. I didn't do it for attention. And that's exactly why people admire you even more, Mia smiled. But you must be prepared. Not everyone will support you. Mia's words were true. Although most reactions were positive, Malik had also seen a few hateful comments online. This black kid just wants attention. It's all staged, just for clout. An old lady and a wannabe hero. Cheap drama. Those harsh words cut into Malik like sharp knives. He hadn't done this for fame, but now the story had spiraled out of his control. Mia placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Don't let those useless words get to you. You did the right thing. Malik nodded, trying to focus on her warmth instead of the negativity. That evening, Malik walked slowly through the dimly lit streets, his earbuds playing soft music to calm his restless thoughts. But as he turned into a narrow alley near his home, something felt wrong. The air was cold and everything seemed unnaturally quiet. Just as he passed the corner of the alley, a shadow lunged out. You stupid punk! Bryce appeared first, his fist swinging straight at Malik's face. Malik instinctively stepped back, but the punch grazed his cheek, leaving a stinging cut. He had no time to react as Kyle and Derek jumped in, shoving him against the damp brick wall. You think you're a hero, huh? Bryce shouted, grabbing Malik's shirt and slamming a fist into his stomach. You humiliated us in front of the whole world. You think you're so great? Kyle added, his punch landing on Malik's shoulder. Pain exploded across his body, but Malik gritted his teeth, trying to fight back, but the three of them overwhelmed him. Enough! Another voice cut through the darkness. Travis stepped out of the shadows, his cold eyes gleaming. That's enough. No need to kill him. Malik gasped for breath, his vision blurring from the pain. You're just cowards. This punk still has a mouth on him? Bryce sneered, but Travis placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Let him remember tonight? Travis leaned down, looking Malik in the eyes. Next time, remember not to get involved in other people's business. They turned and walked away, their laughter echoing through the dark alley. Malik collapsed to the ground, clutching his chest. He could taste blood at the corner of his mouth, but what burned more than the pain was his rising anger. Stumbling to his feet, Malik forced himself out of the alley. A few minutes later, the warm light of Mrs. Eleanor's house lit up as she opened the door. Malik! Oh my God, what happened to you? Mrs. Eleanor cried out, horrified by his bruised and swollen face. They ambushed me, Malik gasped, struggling to stand straight. I'm calling the police right now, Mrs. Eleanor said, her hands shaking as she grabbed her phone. No need, Mrs. Eleanor, Malik managed to say. I'll be fine. I don't want to cause more trouble for you. They have already caused trouble, Malik. We can't let this continue. But Malik simply shook his head, his eyes resolute. I'm not afraid of them, and I won't let them scare you. Mrs. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. You are a brave young man, Malik, but please, don't let your courage become recklessness. Malik smiled slightly, but in his heart, he had made up his mind. If they thought violence would silence him, they were wrong. And the next morning, when a picture of Malik's bruised face appeared on the social media with the caption, "A hero never bows to darkness," his story had only just begun. A wave of resistance. The image of Malik's bruised face with the caption, "A hero never bows to darkness," quickly became the center of attention on social media. Comments exploded. Who did this to him? We can't let bullies keep running wild. Malik, we stand with you. Within hours, the hashtag #StandWithMalik became a trending topic. People in Havenbrook began talking, and the story of Malik protecting Mrs. Eleanor, then being attacked by bullies, turned into a symbol of courage and injustice. At the cafe where Malik worked, Mia, his manager, was overwhelmed with calls from reporters wanting to interview Malik. Customers poured in, not just for coffee, but to meet the young man who had become the town's hero. Malik, are you sure you want to keep working? You need to rest, Mia asked, worry in her voice as she looked at the bruises on Malik's face and his swollen lip. I'm fine, Mia. If I stop now, it means they win. I won't let that happen. Malik smiled, though the smile was still tinged with pain. That evening at Mrs. Eleanor's house, she looked at Malik with concern. Malik, you can't fight them alone. Those boys won't give up. Don't worry, Mrs. Eleanor. I'm not alone. People are standing with me. And Malik was right. The next day, a group of young people in the neighborhood gathered at Havenbrook Square, holding a rally to support Malik. A large banner was raised with the words, "Never stay silent against injustice." Emily, a senior at Havenbrook High, stood up to speak to the crowd. We can't let bullies continue to intimidate those who stand up for the weak. Malik didn't just protect Mrs. Eleanor, he inspired all of us. The crowd cheered. Friends, locals, even strangers raised their signs. We stand with Malik. Courage cannot be defeated. Havenbrook protects its own. At Havenbrook High School, students began writing supportive messages for Malik and Mrs. Eleanor on the community bulletin board. Thank you, Malik, for teaching us about courage. No one should be bullied. No one should be silenced. Be kind, even if it's just once. Mr. Reynolds, the history teacher, even included Malik's story in his lesson, calling it an example of personal courage in modern society. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. They simply stand up when everyone else looks away, Mr. Reynolds said proudly. But while Malik and Mrs. Eleanor found themselves surrounded by community support, Bryce, Kyle, and Derek were drowning in fear and anger. In an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts, they gathered with Travis and his gang, faces twisted with rage. We're being mocked everywhere, Bryce shouted, slamming his fist against the metal wall, his knuckles bleeding. All because of that loser. Because of him and that old hag, Kyle added, a cruel glint in his eyes. If she would just say it was a misunderstanding, we wouldn't be in this mess. Then make her stay silent, Travis spoke, his voice calm but laced with malice. If you want to escape this, make them afraid. Derek nervously glanced at Bryce and Kyle. But what if we get caught? The police are watching. Then don't get caught, Travis replied with a wicked smile. You want to be victims forever? Either make them silent or let them keep destroying your lives. Bryce clenched his fists, anger overpowering his fear. We'll make them pay. But just as darkness plotted its move, a new light began to shine. Mia, the cafe manager, organized a small fundraiser for Mrs. Eleanor, helping her fix her old house and ensuring she had enough food and daily essentials. Neighbors, moved by the story, began offering help. A group of students volunteered to repaint her fence. A plumber offered free repairs to her water system. See, Malik? Your kindness has inspired everyone, Mrs. Eleanor said, her eyes filled with tears. Malik stood beside her, his heart warm but also anxious. He knew that as the light spread, the darkness would only become more desperate, and he was right. That night, as Malik and Mrs. Eleanor sat in the living room chatting, a loud crash shattered the silence. Boom! The living room window exploded, and a flaming glass bottle crashed in, flames spreading rapidly on the old carpet. Fire! Malik! Fire! Mrs. Eleanor screamed in terror. Malik reacted immediately. He grabbed a large blanket, rushing to smother the flames. Get out! Mrs. Eleanor, get out now! He pushed her wheelchair toward the door, and just as they escaped the house, the fire began to spread. Neighbors quickly gathered, some called the fire department, while others helped pull Mrs. Eleanor and Malik to safety. Malik stared at the burning house, his heart pounding. This is their message. They want to scare you, Mrs. Eleanor whispered, trembling. And they think scaring me will make me silent, Malik replied, his eyes fierce. But they're wrong. The storm before dawn. The sound of fire truck sirens pierced through the silent night, red and blue lights flashing as powerful streams of water fought the flames devouring Mrs. Eleanor's living room. Thick black smoke rose, disappearing into the dark sky. Malik and Mrs. Eleanor stood among the crowd of neighbors, her face pale with fear, while Malik kept a protective arm around her, shielding her from the chaos. A young police officer approached them, his expression serious. "Mrs. Eleanor, Mr. Malik, are you two all right?" "We're fine, just—" Mrs. Eleanor's voice choked, her gaze fixed on her home, now charred and ruined. "This is clearly arson," the officer stated, his eyes scanning the shattered window. "We'll begin an investigation. Do you have any suspects?" Malik opened his mouth to speak, but Mrs. Eleanor gently squeezed his hand. She knew that directly accusing Bryce, Kyle, and Derek would only complicate things further. "No, we don't know," she answered, her voice weak. The officer jotted down his report and walked away. But Malik couldn't stop thinking about the angry faces of the three boys and the cold, calculating look of Travis. They had gone too far. Late that night, Mrs. Eleanor stayed with a kind neighbor, while Malik returned to his small apartment. But sleep wouldn't come. His mind replayed the flames, Mrs. Eleanor's terrified screams, and Travis's cruel smile in that dark alley. His phone buzzed, a new message from an unknown number. "This is just the beginning. Next time, it will be you." Malik gripped his phone, his jaw clenched. They didn't just want to scare him. They wanted to destroy him, but they had chosen the wrong person. The next morning, Malik went straight to the cafe, but not for work. He needed help, and he knew Mia, his manager, was the one person who would stand by him. "Mia, I can't let this go on. I need help." Mia listened carefully as Malik told her everything, from the alley ambush, the firebomb attack, and even the threatening message. "Malik, this isn't just your problem anymore. This is a crime. They don't just want to scare you, they want to silence you. And that's why I can't stay silent," Malik replied, his eyes determined. "But I can't fight them alone." Mia thought for a moment, then smiled. "Then don't fight alone. Let me help." Mia quickly reached out to a friend, James Carter, a former investigative journalist for a major newspaper. The story caught James's interest immediately. "Malik, I'll help you expose this. But you must be ready. When light shines on darkness, the monsters become even more desperate." "I'm not afraid of them," Malik said, his voice steady. James helped Malik record an interview video where he told his entire story, from protecting Mrs. Eleanor, the attack in the alley, the arson, and the threats. In the video, Malik looked straight into the camera, his gaze unwavering. "My name is Malik Hayes. I'm not a hero, but I'm not a coward either. I won't stay silent against those who use violence to silence others. And I know I'm not alone." James posted the video on social media and shared it with local news channels. The response was immediate. Within hours, the video went viral, thousands shared it, and people across Havenbrook began to rally around Malik and Mrs. Eleanor. They gathered in front of Mrs. Eleanor's burned house, bringing gifts, supplies, and even donations to help rebuild. Emily, the high school senior who had spoken at the rally, set up an online fundraiser for Mrs. Eleanor, and in less than a day, the funds exceeded expectations. At Havenbrook High, students filled the bulletin board with colorful notes of support for Malik and Mrs. Eleanor. "We won't let darkness win. Courage is speaking the truth even when you're scared. Malik, Mrs. Eleanor, we stand with you." Mr. Reynolds, the history teacher, turned Malik's story into a lesson, using it as an example of personal courage in a modern society. "Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. They simply stand up when everyone else looks away," he told his students with pride. But while Malik received overwhelming support, Travis and his gang were feeling the heat. Bryce, Kyle, and Derek found themselves isolated at school. The friends who once laughed with them now avoided them. "I told you guys we needed to end this fast," Travis snarled, punching an old chair in the abandoned warehouse where they gathered. "But we already burned her house. What else can we do?" Derek stammered, fear in his voice. "Shut up, you're all useless," Travis snapped. "If I don't handle this, you'll all be destroyed." "Handle it? What do you mean?" Bryce asked, but a cold fear twisted in his stomach. I'm going to teach that Malik a lesson he'll never forget, Travis replied, his eyes cold and ruthless. True to James's warning, the darkness was fighting back harder. The next morning, as Malik was cleaning tables at the cafe, a black car pulled up outside. The doors swung open and Travis stepped out, flanked by two tall, muscular men. Malik felt a chill run down his spine. "Malik, get out here!" Travis shouted, his voice filled with rage. "Enough of this! You want to be a hero? Let's see how brave you really are." Mia quickly reached for her phone to call the police, but Malik stopped her. "No, Mia, I won't hide. It's time to end this." He took off his apron and stepped outside. "Say what you want, Travis," Malik said calmly. "What do I want?" "I want you to kneel, apologize, and tell everyone this was all your stupid drama," Travis screamed. Malik shook his head. "Never. You don't have to fight alone." A voice called out behind Malik. James, Mia, Mrs. Eleanor, and dozens of people from the neighborhood were there, some recording with their phones, others simply standing in silent support. Travis and his men hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing their faces. But then Travis's eyes twisted with anger. "Fine, then I'll teach you your final lesson." He lunged forward, but Malik was ready. The final confrontation. Travis lunged forward like a wild beast, his fist aimed directly at Malik's face. But Malik was prepared. He sidestepped, Travis's punch barely grazing his shoulder. In that brief moment, everything seemed to slow down. Malik recalled the self-defense techniques he had practiced in the park, memories of protecting his little sister from bullies when they were kids. Stay calm, pick your moment, and never let fear control you. As Travis swung again, Malik caught his wrist, twisted it backward, and a pain yell erupted from Travis. "You think you're strong?" Travis snarled, struggling against Malik's grip. But Malik held firm, his dark eyes piercing. Strength isn't about hurting the weak. Strength is about protecting them. Travis's two thugs rushed forward, but a voice thundered across the square. "Police! Everyone freeze!" Flashing red and blue lights filled the area as a police car screeched to a halt. Two officers rushed in, immediately restraining Travis and his lackeys. "Malik, are you okay?" one officer asked, helping him stand. "Yes, I'm fine, but Mrs. Eleanor isn't. Her house was burned down because of these guys." "We're aware of that. Mrs. Eleanor's testimony in your interview video pushed this case forward quickly." Cheers erupted from the crowd. Mia ran forward, wrapping Malik in a tight hug, while Mrs. Eleanor smiled through her tears. Travis and his gang were forced into the police car, their faces a mix of shame and fury. "This isn't over, Malik!" Travis yelled, his voice muffled behind the glass of the police car. "No, Travis, it's over, and we won," Malik replied, his gaze calm and unshaken. News of the confrontation spread quickly on social media. Malik's story became a symbol of standing against violence and bullying. The local news channels covered his story, and he became a hero in the eyes of the community. Donations poured in for Mrs. Eleanor, and her home was rebuilt, better and safer than before. Malik continued working at the cafe, but he was no longer the shy young man avoiding trouble. He was a hero. James, the journalist who helped Malik, wrote an in-depth article about the entire story, calling it a lesson in courage in an age of apathy. Malik received letters from several universities offering him full scholarships, inviting him to become a symbol of courage and justice. But he didn't rush to decide. "I think I'll stay here a bit longer. There are still people who need help, and I don't want to leave Mrs. Eleanor alone." Mrs. Eleanor smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "Malik, you didn't just save me. You saved yourself. And you taught all of us that we must never stay silent in the face of injustice." A week later, Malik and Mrs. Eleanor sat on the porch of her newly rebuilt home, watching the neighborhood children playing in the street. Malik smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. "Everything worked out in the end, Mrs. Eleanor," Malik said, taking a sip of his tea. "Yes, my dear, and it's all because you never gave up." A bicycle skidded to a stop at the gate. Emily, the high school senior who had organized the support rally, jumped off and waved. "Malik, there's a community meeting tonight, and they want you to be the guest speaker." Malik laughed. "Another speech?" "I'm not a speaker, Emily. "But you're a hero," Emily replied, admiration glowing in her eyes. Malik looked at Mrs. Eleanor, then at the setting sun on the horizon. "I'm just someone who knows when to stand up against what's wrong, and that's something anyone can do." He stood up, walking with Emily toward the meeting, ready to tell his story one more time. Not for praise, but to inspire courage in others. In life, we often face darkness, but sometimes all it takes is one person to stand up, and the light begins to spread. Malik wasn't the strongest, nor the most extraordinary, but he was brave enough to stand, to fight against the darkness, and to protect someone in need. And from that simple act, an entire community was awakened.